Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. This video is pretty straightforward. We're going to be talking about the new releases I have checked out from 2025. The format I'm using for this, as you can see, is going to be kind of spreadsheet based. I did this with last year's list, and people seem to enjoy it because it allowed me to go through all the albums that I had heard from the previous year rather than just showing a handful of top albums and then you don't find out anything about any of the other stuff I listen to. I've heard about 80 releases that came out this year. That's just a number. I'm not bragging about it. I don't know if it's good or bad or high or low. It doesn't really matter. That's just how many 2025 metal releases I've checked out. There are, I believe, 71 of them on the list here. Some aren't on here because maybe I only heard them once or twice, wasn't enough to register much of an opinion. And some of them have just come out recently. So again, haven't had time to register much of an opinion. A couple of quick examples that you won't see on the list are the new Blut aus Nord. This just came out in late November. I've listened to it a couple of times. Seems okay. I'm not exactly in the mood for Blut aus Nord right now. So there's no point in me playing it a bunch of times when I feel like I'd rather be listening to a different style of music. So that one's not on here. This year's Sodom album, The Arsonist, is not on the list either because as of the time of this recording, I'm getting set for the Sodom discography review stream we're doing over on Heavy Metallurgy soon. And I'll be talking about The Arsonist in that context. So it's not on this list either. So yeah, we're just going to go through all the albums. I'll go through them as quickly as I can. Now, it takes a little bit to go through a list of 71 albums. I have not put any kind of visual grade on screen because I've noticed when you do that, people just fixate on whatever grade you gave it and don't hear a single word you actually said to describe the album. So I've just put up country the band is from, band name, and album title. They're alphabetical by band. Might as well get started. I will not, oh, sorry, last point. We will not be revealing like my favorite album or my top 10 or anything. That will be done over on Heavy Metallurgy on Friday, December 26th. As has become our tradition on Metallurgy, we'll be doing an end of year show with a lot of the Metallurgy contributors all doing their top 10 lists together. So I'll definitely be pointing out what are my favorite albums as we go through this list, but I'm not numerically ranking anything. If you want to find out my numerical rankings, yep, you'll have to watch the Metallurgy live stream in a couple of weeks. Okay, let's get going on this list because it'll take a little time. Up first is Akarantes from Greece. Their album Nekia Necromantic Patterns came out. Pretty good album. I don't know very much about this band. I've heard a couple of their releases. They seem to operate in that sort of occult black metal style where they want to be kind of hermetic and obfuscated. Pretty good sound. I played the album quite a bit. Albums in that particular style of black metal are not always the easiest to wrap your head around, so it takes a little while to sink in, but I think it is a pretty good album by them. I don't know how it compares to their other releases. I've heard their first couple on, I think, like one split that they did. So I don't have a big frame of reference, and they've put out a lot of material in the past 10 years or so. Up next, we've got Ahamkara's Harrow of the Lost. This was a Bindrune release from earlier in the year and is a pretty solid one in that atmospheric melodic black metal style that Bindrune specializes in. It's a style I haven't been in a mood for very often this year, so I haven't gone back and revisited this one very much. And that's going to apply to some of the other Bindrune titles as well. Things like the new Weft album sounded quite good. Charlie's, good on that album. It's a great debut release for them. I just haven't given it a lot of spin since it's not a style I've spent much time with during 2025. All right, up next, Amalekim with Shir Hashirim. This is one I reviewed for Metallurgy earlier in the year. It says Poland here, but as I recall, they're an international band. I think they've also got members from Italy and or maybe Germany. This is another one that's a bit similar to the Acherontus album, where they're operating in that sort of occultish, somewhat Deathspell Omega influenced vein of black metal. Good album. Another one that you have to listen to a bunch of times for it to sink in. This one uses, a reasonable amount of synthesizers, gives the music some extra melody, which works pretty well for the style. Liked this one. I did pick this one up. Haven't gone back and played it a lot since the review, though. So a good album, maybe like on the bubble as like a top 10 album, though. Amorphous released Borderland. I checked this out. I want to be real honest. Amorphous albums became completely interchangeable to me years ago. I don't mind what the band does, but I listen to them once or twice and then I never think of them again. I haven't bought a physical copy of an Amorphous album in ages, and I don't really intend to start doing so again. The band isn't bad in any way, but I feel like the albums are kind of samey, and it's a style that just doesn't have any staying power on my playlists. Now, this next one does have some staying power. Ancient Death is a new project out of the US. Ego Dissolution's their first full length, as I recall. And this is a tremendous album. This will definitely be talked about on the best of year lists. Yeah, one member at least has ties to Atheist. That's one of the guitarists. And this album just sounds really great. It has a very open, spacious sound compared to a lot of the claustrophobic, cavernous death metal. This has its own production and its own style, and it works brilliantly. The guitar work is great. The drumming is really good. I just like the sense of openness to the music. That is, they're not trying to clutter it up, but it's really effectively delivered. Great album. This next one's great too. Arrows out of Switzerland, Yearning Arrows, Cloven Suns. This, to my knowledge, is a digital only release so far. Hopefully there'll be a physical release. Maybe it's already come out and I've missed it. But yeah, this is another one of those kind of, esoteric, blackened death metal type of projects. There's a musical collective where a lot of bands have shared members and such. This is the only one I'm really familiar with from that group of artists, but it's a great debut album. This is one that Simon over at Explosive Action sent my way. And a big thank you to Simon for pointing this out because I've really enjoyed this release. I hope they're able to produce some physical copies. I know a lot of folks would rather have it on that format. And I hope they can follow this up and that it doesn't get lost in the other projects that they're working on because it's a really, really good release. Next is Ash Magic. This is a female black metal project from Turkey. They've released Rituals of Anathematic East. Okay. This one didn't do too much for me. I gave it a couple of spins. It just didn't connect. So we'll just move on. Brazil's Autrest released their sophomore effort. This is a one-man black metal project, melodic, atmospheric black metal. The album's released through Northern Silence, which gives you a really good idea of what they sound like. Northern Silence has definitely kind of zeroed in on a particular sound that a lot of their artists have in recent years. And yeah, Burning Embers, Forgotten Wolves, not a bad release at all. I like this project. Whoops. This one, I don't think it's quite as strong as the debut from a couple of years ago. That album really connected with me and stayed in my playlist a long time. This one's a good release, and maybe it's just the fact that, again, I haven't been in a really dedicated melodic black metal mood for most of 2025. So this is one I could see myself coming back to next year when I'm in the mood for that style and thinking, oh, wow, yeah, this is actually quite good. And I've just undersold it a little bit based on what I'm in the mood to listen to lately. But I still do like the project. It's not like anything went wrong with it. It just got a little bit lost in the mix and in the fact that I'm not listening to a lot of that style in the recent months. Let's see, Azathoth's Dream. This is a US black metal project. Solitary Forest Necromancy. Great title for a black metal release. It's fine. It's, kind of just average black metal. Not good, not bad. Just an average release. Greece's Black Sword Thunder Attack. fun name, if a bit unwieldy. This was their debut. It got some hype early in the year because it got reviewed over on Banger TV by Sarah. It is a very good release, very fun. It's meant to be really strongly in the Warlord and Lordian Guard vein. And that's fine because not a lot of bands operate in that style. So it doesn't feel like an overly saturated subgenre. I do think they probably wore their influences on their sleeve a little bit too much. The review on Banger really gushed about the release, was making it out like superior to Warlord, which I'm sorry, I cannot agree with that whatsoever. It's great Warlord-like material, but I think moving forward, it'd be nice to hear them find their own voice a little bit, do their own thing. Cool release, I've enjoyed it. It's just, if you want a Warlord clone, here you go. If you're not interested in that, this album doesn't really offer anything different. Next up, from Finland, another Northern Silence project, Bloody Valkyria with In Our Home Across the Fog. Once again, it was synthesizer reliant, melodic, atmospheric black metal. I like this album quite a bit early in the year. It's fantasy based. I believe this one's based around the Elden Ring video game. Video games are not my thing, so apologies if I'm remembering the wrong game. But I think the songwriting on this album was quite good. I gave it a nice review over on Heavy Metallurgy. Haven't circled back to it except once or twice, but it's held up well when I did revisit it later in the year. So the Bloody Valkyria album is a good one. Cancer reemerged in the UK this year. Wait, that sounds wrong. The band Cancer put out another album this year, Inverted World. Cancer's a long-running project. Some people adore them. A lot of people, I feel like, kind of put them on second, maybe even third tier from that old school death metal scene. I've revisited some of the older albums recently, like The Sense of Mankind or the one before that. They've held up a little better than I expected them to. I was never nuts about the band back in the day, but those older albums, they've clicked pretty well with me upon re-listen. Inverted World is not a bad release. It's not amazing. It's not album of the year material or anything like that. But I thought the band did a pretty good job with it, considering that you've got, some, shifts in lineup and stuff like that. Modern production's going to give it a different sound and different feel than those classic albums. It still worked out pretty good. It was the kind of album I was like, I'll give it a chance just to see what it's like. I was not expecting much, just to be honest. But it actually held up well enough that I reviewed it for Metallurgy and gave it a thumbs up. An album I do not give a thumbs up is the new release from Christian Mistress, Children of the Earth. This is a project people were really excited to see bounce back with a new release. I wanted to like this one. I reviewed it with Logan for Metallurgy, and we both agreed that it's just a pretty dull, uninspired listen. It just does not have any real spark to it. The songwriting's just not there. The vocal delivery surprisingly doesn't come across as strong as on some previous releases. So, yeah, Christian Mistress for me is one of the disappointments of the year. To folks who liked it, that's great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It just did not work for me. Let's see. Cirith Ungol released a live album, Live at the Roxy. I, of course, love Cirith Ungol. However, I don't think this is a really necessary release. One thing I'm starting to notice is Cirith Ungol does not need to get in the habit of releasing a bunch of live material because their catalog isn't large enough to offer much variety from one live set to the next to the next. Sure, on this one, I think there's more tracks from the most recent album. That makes sense. But that most recent album is still only, what, album number six? So it just doesn't feel like a band that's going to need to put out multiple live albums. And they had just put out the I'm Alive collection, maybe five, I guess it was 6 years ago. Nevertheless, with such a small back catalog, the live sets are always going to be drawing on very similar songs. There are certain ones they're always going to play, kind of their classic must-hear standards. This isn't a band that has a catalog as deep as, Priest or Maiden or someone who could make three live albums and only have them overlap a few songs apiece. So the Live at the Roxy collection, it's fine. There ain't a thing wrong with it. Don't know if I really need to play it that much because I've got the I'm Alive live album. I've got live bootlegs from this band from back in the day too. You only need so much live ungle. They're amazing live by all accounts. There's nothing wrong with the performance. It's just how many times do you need to hear different live renditions of the same songs from Kirith Ungle? All right, up next, an album that's been talked about a lot in the later part of 2025, Coroner's Dissonance Theory. Opinions have ranged on this one a lot. Some people declared it album of the year after listening to about 5 minutes of the album, which I don't ever think's a good idea. Other people have completely dismissed this as extremely disappointing and not at all what they wanted. I am firmly in the middle of that pack. There are things I like about the album. First off, it's not Grin Part 2. That's something that a relatively small part of their fan base wanted. This one is more riff oriented, which is perfect. Less groove, more riff. Yes, thank you. That works great. This album's also trying to distinguish itself from the earlier catalog. And this is where some people start to give it a thumbs down. Some people wanted, you know, something like, Punishment for Decadence Part 2. And I'm sorry, but you were never going to get that. Coroner is a band whose albums always change a little bit. And I never get the sense that Coroner wants to just go back and remake something they did 40 years ago. So anybody who is just like setting themselves up for, yeah, this is going to be RIP all over again, I hate to say it, but you set yourself up for disappointment. Now, on the other hand, you've got people praising this as like a progressive, metal and technical thrash masterpiece. I can't agree with those opinions either. This album is not as techy as some people are making it out to be. Tommy's playing is great on it, but he's not going nuts all over the place. A lot of times the guitar breaks are shorter and more compact. He's not noodling everywhere, doing all kinds of tech wizardry. And there's a progressive bent to a lot of the music here, but they're not going like into far left field psychedelia with all kinds of crazy electronics or anything. It's still straightforward corner material. If this album is similar to any of their previous albums, I'd say it's probably most similar to Mental Vortex. Still very riffy, still very solid, but maybe not the best set of songs that they've put together just in terms of memorability. Ron still sounds great. Again, the performances are fine, but even after playing this one a fair amount, I feel kind of, it's fine. It's all right. I wouldn't give it a thumbs down at all. It's a thumbs up, but it's like thumbs up. Now I'm going to move on to something else. It is not an album that has really captured my imagination and held my attention for, 2 months or anything. I've given it a lot of plays to really try to digest it. At the end of the day, I'm like, well, it's a good comeback. I like that they're doing a few things differently, but I'm just not sure it really works out for me personally at the end of the day. All right, gotta pick up the pace here a little bit. Crimson Storm, newer project from Italy, living on the bad side. Pretty fun debut. Sounds a bit like late 80s Riot. This is the kind of thing that Dying Victims spews out a lot of these days, to the point that even I'm not able to keep up with everything Dying Victims puts out. Fun album, really nice guitar work in it. Probably needs a little time to mature and just tighten up a little bit in songwriting and such, but still a promising debut. The new Death Hammer, Crimson Dawn. If you like Death Hammer, this is a good Death Hammer album. If you feel like Death Hammer makes the same album over and over, Yes, this is another Death Hammer album. I like what they do, but the whole black and thrash style, bands get themselves painted into a corner pretty quickly. Nothing at all wrong with this album. I like it, but it doesn't really differentiate itself. It's the kind of band I quickly start asking myself, how many other albums do I really need to buy? Because if I've got one, I feel like I've probably got most of them. Yeah, that's the breakdown on Death Hammer. Decrepacy. Now, this is one that kind of came out of nowhere and really impressed me this year. Deific Morning, I think, is their sophomore album, but there's been some lineup changes as I recall. Really creepy death metal, good cavernous slow sound at times, very dark. It ends with a fantastic cover of an old Sister of Mercy's B-side. Really unnerving vocal delivery throughout the album. Like this one a lot. This is one I haven't picked up a physical copy of yet, but I will do so when I get a chance to. Destruction had a new album earlier this year, The Birth of Malice. It is a perfectly good Destruction album. If you're a Destruction fanboy, you will like The Birth of Malice. If you feel like Destruction is another veteran band who just has that kind of standard Nuclear Blast catalog contract, and they just kind of keep making good but samey albums, yes. Yes, they do. Drouth, The Teeth of Time. Logan reviewed this for Metallurgy. It sounded interesting. I gave it a few spins. It never fully clicked with me. I don't think it's a bad release. I just was like, I don't think I'm getting this. And after a handful of spins, I just moved on with my life. 11th Ray, Reviving Tehom. This one hasn't gotten much chatter. This is another one that Simon from Explosive Action sent my way. It's a pretty interesting project. The best description Simon and I could come up with for it was that it feels like early Celtic Frost meets early Tiamat, and you just jam those two together. It's got the kind of raw vibe of earliest Celtic Frost material, but it's drawing on a lot of the kind of the dark, ritualistic, magical inspired lyrics and stuff that Therion was all about back on like their symphony masses era. It's pretty good. I feel like it's still a bit rough around the edges, which is probably part of the point. It's probably supposed to be that way. So, an interesting release, one that's definitely merited multiple listens. It's a band I want to keep an eye on. I'll be interested to see what they decide to do moving forward. So, big thanks to Simon for pointing that one out because I haven't heard anybody else talk about that album. Up next, we have Eminentia Tenebris. Yes. French black metal project Whispers of the Undying. Average black metal album, not good, not bad, just average black metal. If you like lots of different black metal acts, if you're one of those black metal enthusiasts and you go wide wanting to check out every band, this is a perfectly reasonable release. Faytooth out of California released their sophomore effort, Labyrinthine. This will be very high on my end of year list. I think it's an amazing sophomore effort. Despite a lineup change, it still has a great sound. They have the same producer as the debut album, which I think was a smart choice because they've really got a killer production job dialed in for this band. Really creepy blackened vocals used sparingly here and there really just makes your back arch and hair stand up on your arms. But at the same time, really sad, beautiful music too. They use the term fairy doom to describe themselves. It's a fun moniker, and it highlights the fact that there's this pretty serene sort of post-punk beauty to the music, but it can also be really fucking heavy and dark at the same time. Great band and a really good album this year. Fer-de-Lance, Fire on the Mountainside. Kellen and I reviewed this. It's their sophomore effort. I like this band a lot. This album, I don't think it's as good as the debut, though. At the end of the day, it still sounds like Fer-de-Lance. There's just things about the pacing on the album, having a longer song way up front, for example, that make this one I haven't gone back and played nearly as much as I have the debut album. So nothing changed about the sound. Just the way the album's put together, I feel came up a little bit short. Hate to say it, because I really do like the project, and I hope they keep going and put out more cool stuff. Gull's Weird, of course, features Gull from Norwegian black metal fame. Braiding the Stories is the second album. This project's leaning very progressive. This album has a fantastic production. It's very warm, rich, and deep. It does not feel overly processed or anything. Some of us sometimes, make jokes about this type of Norwegian black metal being the, red wine and sweater wearing set. This doesn't have that vibe about it whatsoever, even though musically it may be coming from the same space. The delivery and the production give it a much more natural feel. Really good album. Very few people have talked about it this year, which is a shame. I think it's a really strong one. Yendod had a new album. Yeah, you can see the title there on the screen if you need to know it. Marty reviewed this one for Metallurgy. I've played this a few times. It's made a good first impression. Haven't played it enough for it to really cement my opinion yet, though. Gruesome released Silent Echoes. This is the death tribute band. If you want to hear somebody basically cover death without actually playing real death songs, Gruesome is exactly what you want. I'll admit I have a little trouble with this project because they're trying so hard to sound like something that is so revered. They do a good job with it, absolutely. But at the same time, that means they're very accomplished musicians, but they're just dedicating themselves to trying to sound like somebody who died 20 years ago. They could probably do some really interesting stuff that would have their own individual thought patterns worked into it. Pause for either giggles or a groan, however you respond to that comment. I'd like to see them do something a little more original. I think it's clear that they could. It feels just a little strange that they want to just keep trying to remake death without remaking death. That's my take on it. Nothing against folks who enjoy it. They do a great job with it. Haleo Effect. This one is kind of a who's who from melodic Swedish death metal. This is their second album. It's a fun listen. Mike reviewed this for Metallurgy early in the year. Fun melodic death metal, kind of leaning a little bit poppy. I like it, but it's not a style I'm going to listen to very often. I played it a few times when it came out back in January. I doubt I've played it since February. Havakrunu's Tabastland. Kellen and I reviewed this one. It's no secret. I think this album's amazing. I've talked about it multiple times all year. It's going to be, spoiler alert, but it's really not a spoiler. It's going to be my favorite album of this year. Nothing tops this album. Havakrunu's been building to something like this over their first three albums. And yeah, I think this is one of those albums that will not just define this year, but may define the band's career, may define, be one of those top albums from the entire decade, once we get to looking at it in hindsight. Okay, Halloween, Giants and Monsters. One of my favorite bands of all time. I do not think this is one of their better albums. Marty and I disagree on this, and that's fine. He loves it to death, and I'm glad he does. This album has several amazing songs on it, but it also has several not amazing songs on it. The band is trying to lean into a little bit more of an accessible rocking direction by their own admission. The production alone tells you that's what they're doing. And a couple of those songs are okay, and a few of those songs just leave me really cold. On any Halloween album, you're going to have at least one brilliant song and one dud of a song. This album just kind of amplifies that. It feels like there's three brilliant songs and three dud songs, and three that are kind of stranded in the middle, more or less. Yeah, for a band that's got so many great albums, this one just doesn't rank very high in the Halloween pantheon for me personally. So it's not a bad album. It wasn't a disaster or anything like that. I just feel like there's too many meh songs for me to really get excited and keep playing this. Imperial Triumphant Gold Star. This one was talked up a lot when it came out early in the year. and then it just kind of disappeared. Ben reviewed this one, I believe, for Metallurgy, and he seemed kind of disappointed with it. I don't know if other folks were too. I don't have a much history listening to Imperial Triumphant. I thought it was okay, kind of interesting, but I didn't spend enough time with it to let it all sink in. Incinerated is an interesting death metal project out of Indonesia. Epitome of Transgression's their second release. This one's much more mature sounding than the debut. The debut is pretty primal, that's fine. But on this one, they're definitely trying to go to a new level. As I recall, there's at least one, maybe two new members on board. I think they did a really interesting, cool album. It has not gotten any chatter. It has not gotten any distribution. I haven't been able to find a physical copy of it yet without paying like, $30 to import it from the other side of the world. If somebody would stock them in the US, I'd buy a copy. I think it's a very, very good album that's sadly probably going to go very overlooked. Krigsgrav released Stormcaller. Had never checked out this band, so I did. It's better than average. I didn't spend a ton of time with it, so I don't have much to say about it. But yeah, made a decent first impression. Lady Beast was yet another of many traditional metal bands with a female vocalist who released albums, especially in the early half, the first half of 2025. Inner Alchemist, I think, is their strongest to date. It just kind of combines all the elements they're good at, and they do it even better on this outing. So, a very solid album. It's just become a very crowded niche, which was very evident this year with so many similar bands putting out albums. I think Lady Beast is one of the better bands in that style and in that vein. Not the best, but they are up there. Good album if you're again like a new wave of traditional heavy metal completist. Lady Beast should be pretty high on your to buy list from 2025. Lamp of Murmur, The Dreaming Prince in Ecstasy. Okay, Metallurgy was going to review this one and they didn't get around to it. I was glad that they did not, that they, being Lamp of Murmur, did not continue on the path of the previous album. The last album was such a sort of at the heart of winter homage that it just felt weird. It was performed well, but kind of like the gruesome situation I discussed a few minutes ago. It just felt weird to hear Lamp of Murmur try to create At the Heart of Winter Part 2. This time, Lamp of Murmur has moved on to something else, and I think they're establishing a pattern where every album's going to be a bit different, which is cool. This album, the majority of it is fine. I'd say, yeah, average black metal for the first six or seven songs. But then the last couple of songs are notably different and more interesting. So they mix it up all of a sudden at the end of the album, and it's like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty interesting. Maybe do more of that next time. I don't know. So not a bad album and kind of an interesting twist to the end of it. Leper Colony, old school death metal from Germany. Those Are the Morbid is their second album. Not bad. It did not catch my attention nearly as much as the debut album did. So yeah, it got a few plays, and I kind of quickly decided, yeah. Again, it's not that anything went wrong on this release. It just didn't feel quite as strong as the previous album, and as such, it didn't stay in rotation very long. Lord Weird Slothfag resurfaced with an EP that revisits the Traveler universe, Traveler Supplement 1. Marty and I reviewed this early in the year. It's a fun listen for die-hard Slothfag fans. At the same time, it's just an EP, and it does have a feeling of being kind of thrown together. Marty and I mentioned this, that it feels like kind of a live jam, hit the record button, let's wrap this up and just churn it out pretty quick. So while it's fun, I can't say that it's a really stellar release, even though it is an interstellar release. I'm sorry, I'll try to do less of that. Next up from Sweden, we have Malakim and In Our Hearts, The Devil Sings. This is one of the better black metal releases I heard this year. To balance that statement, though, it is very straightforward. If you like Swedish black metal in the vein of Dissection or Watain, stuff like that, this album is worth checking out. I was very impressed with it. I was one that like, sounds interesting. I believe they're on Osmos, maybe. So I gave it a chance. Like, yeah, and this actually got played for a couple of weeks. That said, it is a very straightforward black metal album. If you're getting a little tired of hearing every other band try to sound like Dissection, Malachim's not going to do anything really original for you. My other nitpick with this album is the production feels like it's very brick-walled. It's all loud, all in your face, all the time, from the very first notes to the very last notes. Some people want that in their black metal. Cool, you'll like this. I think this band would benefit a lot from incorporating more dynamics into the production. Let things get quieter at times. Let the songs breathe a little here and there. Then come roaring back with the next, really unholy blasting section. And I think the album would have more impact. I mean, when you just keep hitting something with a hammer over and over and over, eventually whatever you're hitting just becomes numb and doesn't really notice or feel it anymore. So you need to mix up that delivery just a bit more. But nevertheless, a really cool black metal album. And this one has gotten some US distribution. I'm pretty sure NWN Prod has stocked this. I don't know if they still have copies. Maybe some others have picked it up too, but this one's been accessible for fans here in the US and is worth checking out as long as you're okay with a very loud, in your face, average black metal delivery, but done extremely well. All right. Master's Hammer, Maldoror Disco. I reviewed this one for Metallurgy. It's not really metal at this point, besides the vocals, which are fantastic as always. But yes, Master's Hammer is still off in electronic land, doing their own thing. If you like it, you'll like this album. If you don't, then there is no reason to check this out whatsoever. I think it's pretty cool. I've been in the mood for this kind of stuff later in 2025. Mean Mistreaters out of Austin, Texas. They are my personal favorite among the new wave of traditional heavy metal bands with a female vocalist. This is their second album in 2 years. Do or Die has a lot of great fun songs on it, great guitars. They play this style exactly the way I want to hear it. My one gripe with this album is that it's not even 30 minutes long. They needed to take, I would rather they have taken an extra 6 months, written maybe two more really good songs, and then released the album. If that had occurred, this would easily be near the top of my list for the year. As such, it does feel slightly rushed, coming right on the heels of their album from 2024. Here's another 8 songs, 29 minutes, Dying Victims Productions kind of thing. And it's just like, well, wait, hold on, that's great, but I wanted a little bit more out of it, just in terms of quantity, because the quality is there. Absolutely. Let's see. Medieval Demon, Greek, sort of esoteric black metal. I believe this project's on Hell's Headbangers. All Powers of Darkness. This was another one I just kind of checked out on a whim. It's like, I don't know what it is. Let's find out. And it's actually pretty cool. I've been meaning to get back to this one and just have not had the time to do so. But yeah, I was impressed with what I heard from Medieval Demon's new album. Mesa, a Doom-ish project from Italy, released The Spin very early this year on Metal Blade. They've got one of the best female vocalists in metal-related fields with Sarah. She has an amazing voice. The Spin is a great album. Rick and I reviewed this one. We both enjoyed it a lot. He's followed that project very closely since their debut. This one I've revisited a few times throughout the year, and it has held up quite well. I don't know if it'll quite make my top 10 list for the year. It's close. There's just a lot of good albums this year that I really like. Mesa might end up being like honorable mention instead, but a good album for sure. Let's see, Naked Whipper, Chapel Defilement. This was another Ben review, I believe. Project I was not familiar with out of Germany. And they play blackened grindcore, which is not a combo you hear about all that often. There are other bands that do it. But Naked Whipper had done one album way back in the day and then kind of came back out of nowhere to do another album that's kind of similar. It's a fun listen. It is not something I want to listen to very often. I've got to be in just the right mood, but if I am, then yeah, this is actually quite enjoyable. Nichachuan released their most recent album. This was their follow-up to, oh, I'll get the title wrong, Black Kanawa? Sorry. That album was really well received. The new album is all acoustic instrumental music. There's really no vocals to it. There's no amplification or distortion to it. Nothing wrong with that. You know, the guys are really good at that style. They're very gifted musicians. This is not the kind of thing I'm going to listen to very often at all. Not bad mouthing the project whatsoever, but uh, folky acoustic instrumental music is just not my bag. So, not something I'm going to replay hardly ever. Novembre from Italy re-emerged after a 9-year hiatus. New lineup around Carmelo. They released Words of Indigo. Still has the classic Novembre sound. Very impressed with the album. Several really, really strong tracks on it. I gave it a very strong review on Metallurgy. Jeff over at Gas Masks and Hand Grenades did a really nice in-depth interview with Carmelo. This band's been around forever. They've been on Century Media and Peaceville, and nobody seems to know who the heck they are, which is a real shame. They are very good. And I agree with Jeff's assessment. This is really a progressive metal project at this point. It's not been fair to call them death metal or anything like that for a long time. Really good album. If you want something, check it out. Old Temple is black metal from New Zealand, melodic black metal. I can't remember if this is a Northern Silence project or not. I don't think they are, but they could probably fit in with the Northern Silence roster. Megalith was a good listen. Just again, as I've said a few times, this style is not something I've been in the mood for the last half of 2025. But this did sound pretty good. One of Nine. This was a late release from, I believe they're on 20 Buck Spin. Got a little bit of hype because 20 Buck Spin is a pretty visible label. And this band's leaning heavily into Tolkien imagery. That's the whole one of nine being one of the nine Nazgul. There's, lyrical themes and stuff that are drawing heavily on Tolkien. So Dawn of the Iron Shadow, it's done pretty well. I do like it. There's a lot of black metal that draws on Tolkien. And I don't have a real problem with that. It can work, obviously. Summoning, is proof of that. How many times do I need black metal bands to tell me about Balrogs and wizards and stuff? I don't know. It feels like maybe it's thematically just getting overdone in black metal. But One of Nine does it quite well. It is a good album. A better album is Oneirophagus's Revelations from the Void. Came out really early in the year. Unfortunately, has gotten very little attention as far as I know. Really good in that kind of death doom, mixing in some elements of other styles as well. Nicely executed songs. Reminds me a bit of Jade. And Jade is one you may have noticed was not on my list here. Jade put out a new album this year. I have heard it a few times. For whatever reason, it never manages to stay on my playlist, which is a shame because I think their debut and even the split they did recently are both amazing. And there's nothing wrong with the new Jade album, except the damn thing will not stay on my playlist. I'll play it, think, pretty good. I should play that again. And a month goes by and I haven't touched it. Oneirophagus operated in a similar style, but Oneirophagus managed to stay on my playlist a lot more. Really good project. I would love to see them get some more visibility. I think it's a cool project. Ossuary's Abhorrent Worship. This one got some mentions here and there throughout the year. It's a very dirty, grimy sounding death metal delivery. Blackened death, I guess you would want to call it. Really inhuman vocals. The vocal performance is spine chilling. It works really, really well. I've enjoyed this one a lot. It is a CD that folks in the US seem to be wanting to charge like, $24.99 for. It ain't that kind of party. Sorry, but no, I'm not paying you 25 bucks for a brand new CD. But a really, really good album. I like how they made it very distinct sounding. There were lots of bands trying to sound dark and lots of bands trying to sound cavernous and all that. And I think, sometimes the word filthy gets thrown around as an adjective a little too often for describing death metal. This band really makes you feel like you need to take a shower after you play it in the best possible way. Outlaw, a black metal project from Brazil. Again, it's a solid black metal release. I've enjoyed one of their previous albums. This one doesn't offer anything new. It's not done badly at all, but it's just kind of there. So a kind of an average release for the year. Owlbear's Feather and Claw. This is sort of Dungeons and Dragons inspired metal, but they don't use a lot of that in the lyrics. The lyrics are kept a little more generic fantasy, which I'm happy with. Like Tolkien material, the D&D stuff is getting overused a bit. Yeah, I don't need every third song I listen to have a reference to Baldur's Gate or Dragonlance or something. Owlbear is just extremely high energy delivery, which is the kick in the ass this style needs to really make it work. If you don't have that, material in this vein can fall flat. But yeah, this is a great delivery. The energy level's off the charts. It's simple, it's kind of mindless fun, but that's what this should be. Love the Feather and Claw album. Pagan Altars return. Now, of course, this has Brendan filling the vocal spot since Terry passed away. How does that work with Terry having such a distinct voice? Never Quite Dead shows that it works just fine. Brendan did an amazing job on the vocals. It's a very good album, lots of good tracks on it. I think the album runs out of steam a little bit near the end. Like there's a acoustic instrumental that doesn't really need to be there. It kind of fits. Pagan Altar's done that kind of thing before, so it's not out of place, but it just doesn't work in the context of this album. It's a really good release. I'm surprised more people haven't talked about it this year. Sue reviewed this for Metallurgy, and yeah, it's good. It's pretty widely available, so pick that up if you haven't. Panopticon did actually two albums this year, Laurentian Blue and Songs of Hiereth. One of these is an anthology of B-sides, demos, splits, EP tracks, and the other one is all acoustic Americana stuff. And to be very blunt, I don't need either of those things right now. The anthology collection, I've got a lot of the tracks on it on other formats and other releases already. And the Americana stuff is fine, but it's not what I'm in the mood to listen to currently. And Panopticon's already done an album of this. We've heard them do this on a previous album full of this type of material. For me personally, there's going to be a limit to how much of that I want to digest at any time. So cool that they got two albums out, but yeah, neither of them, things that I've spent much time with this year. Just not quite, not what I need at this point. Paradise Lost's new album, Ascension. Good album, not quite as good as their last two albums, but still a fine release from this long-running band. Marty and I are hoping to do a deep dive on the Paradise Lost discography sometime in 2026. We'll come back to it then. Perdition Temple, Malign Apotheosis. Kellen and Jim gave this one a really detailed review recently on Metallurgy. It's a very good album. Perdition Temple, again, they don't do anything. Sorry, I think the cats are getting ornery out there. But Perdition Temple, they don't do anything that innovative. This is Angel Corpse Part 2. Run it back again in that same vein as stuff like Ares Kingdom. But they do it quite well, and I was really impressed with Malign Apotheosis. I felt like this one, yeah, they deliver. If that's the style you like, they deliver really nicely on this album. Phrenolith, a more brutal project from Denmark, released Ashen Womb early this year. Good album. Simon's mentioned this one several times throughout the year. It's quite solid. I haven't played it as much as Simon has, but yeah, it's a thumbs up album. Returning Numerous. This is another Bindrin release from the year that's pretty good. And once again, it's just not a style of black metal I've spent much time on this year. Savage Master, another female-fronted traditional metal band, released Dark and Dangerous this year. Savage Master is a little simpler than their colleagues, but they try to amplify the fun factor a bit more. They have the big stage presence and costumes and all that. And this is another fun listen from them. I think they did a good job on it. Logan and I reviewed it, and yeah, we both agree that it's strong. Psy, project I like a lot out of Japan, released I Saw the World's End, Hangman's Hymn 2025. This is a re-recording of their Hangman's Hymn album. That's one in their catalog that people have often commented that the production didn't do it any favors. And apparently Murari agreed and wanted to go back and give it a makeover. And so we did. And it does sound fine. It has gorgeous new cover art from Elleran Cantor. It's not a new release, so it's not like the kind of thing that's going to make a top of the year release because it's not really from this year. But it was kind of interesting to hear them go back and give one of their old albums a makeover. There are a couple of things in the Psy catalog that might benefit from that. I think it's interesting they did Hangman's Hymn first rather than Gallows Gallery. That's the one that people really have issues regarding the production on. Let's see. This next one I'm never sure how to pronounce. Siljan, Hellish Combat. Jurgen reviewed this one for Metallurgy. It's kind of raw, noisy, catchy Germanic metal. I've been really back and forth on this album. I will play it once and feel like, wow, that's great. And the second time I play, I'm like, oh, wait, I don't know. That didn't really connect. So I haven't really settled on this one. I seem to either love it or not love it based on what day of the week it is. Kind of weird, but other folks, Jurgen, of course, liked it a lot. Marty's enjoyed it. So it's, yeah, got a following. Silverknife released a self-titled album. This is a black metal project from France. Very good. Again, if you like that style of black metal, I thought this was good upon release, but I didn't revisit it later in the year. Scalder's kind of in that same boat. I think this project is from Virginia. I want to say Virginia. It's their second full-length album. I thought they did a good job on the debut. They do a good job on this one. It got lost in the mix of the year with other things going on. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of new albums that came out and a lot of old stuff I'm trying to listen to also. Scalder just never got back onto the playlist, but it did sound good. Shuljan, in Innocence, Metaphysical Grandeur. This is Carl from Inexorum, starting kind of a project on his own, little similar to Inexorum material for sure. Maybe a little raw around the edges. Sounded quite good. Nice job on that one. Next up, Poland Species with Changelings. This came out on 20 bucks spin, but I haven't heard anybody mention it except for Simon. Simon put this one in front of me. He's like, "This is interesting. This seems like something you want to hear." I'm just like, "Okay, I have learned to definitely check things out if Simon recommends them." And he's right. This is a really cool release. Hard to describe. The term that seems to be used is proggy thrash. And I guess that's about as close as you can come in two words. There are some thrash metal structures to the riff patterns and such. The vocals have a harsher edge to them, maybe a bit like a flatter version of Thomas when he was like the early days of At the Gates. But yes, there's a lot of progressive elements worked into this music. The drumming is very lively. The songs morph. There really is a strong sense of changing within every song through different portions. People who like recent Blood Incantation might really enjoy the way this band will alternate faster riff-based sections and then again more tranquil sections where the bass has a great tone and you get some lead bass work here and there. Great guitar work noodling around at times. Some of the quieter passages are dead on ringers for stuff that Opeth would have done on their first two or three albums. Changelings is a really interesting listen. This is a band I will really keep an eye on moving forward because they show a lot of promise. It's a three-man project too. and it sounds like they probably have five musicians. There's a lot of talent on display here. Don't sleep on Species. Spiritus Mortis, fun Dune project from Finland, released a live album. That's great. It's a live album. Sure, it's a live album. It doesn't blow me away, but it showcases the band in a live environment. I kind of like what they do. Tower, another of those, traditional heavy metal projects. They had yet another album come out, Let There Be Dark. This one I didn't connect with as much as I did most of the others. For whatever reason, this one just doesn't strike me as nearly as strong as, say, the Savage Master or Mean Mistreater or Lady Beast. It is better than Christian Mistress, so it's certainly not at the bottom of the barrel from this year. But as I said, there's so many bands in this style that, yeah, it's a crowded field and we all can only listen to so much stuff. Tribunal from Canada released their sophomore album. This is a doom project that does kind of the Beauty and the Beast lyrics, gruff male vocals, pretty female vocals. The debut was decent, but I think this follow-up, Impenitence and Ruin, is a really strong step forward. You can tell they're much more confident in the compositions and in the vocal performances. There's a little more variety to the songs. There's a little more energy to some of them also. So yeah, this one stood out to me as like, wow, if we have some kind of weird lame award for like most improved band compared to their previous album, might give it to Tribunal. And it's not that the debut was bad in any way, but I feel like they made a major step forward on this one. Really like the sophomore. Ulver's new album drops on December 31st, so most people probably haven't heard it or had a chance to find out about it yet. It's called Neverland. Ulver is doing Ulver things. It's pretty much all instrumental, electronic. This album very much works on kind of, the ambient soundscapes that Ulver has experimented with a lot over the years. And it sounds very good. It's the kind of thing I'm in the mood for here at the end of 2025. So I've enjoyed listening to the promo of it so far. Ulver just released an album late last year, Liminal Animals. That was also a fun release, but that one, the songs had more of like a 80s electric synth pop kind of feel to them. Quiet, but still kind of catchy and poppy. This one stays in the electronic realms, but again, backs off from much of any vocals and is really wanting to, develop more that cinematic kind of landscape. Good album. I like it on first impression. Venator from Austria released Psychodrome. A lot of folks really enjoyed this band's debut. I thought it was good. I didn't gush about it on the same level that some other folks did, but I'm glad some folks got into it. I think Psychodrome's a really good follow-up. Probably slightly better than the debut, in my opinion, at least. I think it unfortunately got a bit buried this year with so much traditional metal coming out. And you could say the same thing about the last one on the list here. Vulture's Vengeance released their second album, Dust Age. This is another one that's a good step up from the debut, but it's just getting a bit lost in the mix, sadly. The title track, Dust Age, is amazing. It's a great song from the year. The band has, a little bit of their own character and personality. They just have to fight for everybody's attention, which is a shame. And that's, kind of the theme. It's been mentioned before. I'm not the first person to observe this. There's so much metal out there, it's hard to hear everything you'd like to. And if you're not careful, you don't give things enough time along the way either. But that is it. Took a while, but 2025. Lots of great releases, a lot of average releases, a couple that didn't live up to expectations, but that's my take on the year. So now let me shut up so you can talk metal in the comments down below. Feel free to leave some mentions of your favorites of the year or some of your least favorites of the year. It's all in good fun. Everyone's got their own tastes, and it's always kind of interesting to compare notes and see what albums folks really got into. There's a ton of things I never got to hear at all. Maybe you've got some recommendations you think I should check out as we get into the end of the holiday season. Feel free to leave those too, and if I've got time, I'll try to give some of them a spin. That is going to do it for this time, however. So until next time, everybody take care, happy holidays, and keep banging your head.